still. Not in the afternoon, but it is a very, very good morning for Evertonians with the news that the Friedkins Takeover has gone through. They are now the owners of Everton Football Club. All of the uncertainty has been removed. This could have happened a few months ago, but hey-ho, it is what it is. We are now owned by the Friedkin Group. The statements this morning from Everton Football Club said Everton Football Club has been acquired by Roundhouse Capital Holdings Limited. It's an entity within the Friedkins Group. The transaction was finalised following an agreement between Farhad Moshiri's Blue Heaven Holdings and Roundhouse for the sale of Blue Heaven Holdings' majority stake in the club. The deal received the necessary regulatory approvals from the Premier League, Women's Professional Leagues Limited, the Football Association and the Financial Conduct Authority. So it is done. There's obviously statements from Mark Watts, who's going to be the incoming chairman of Everton Football Club. A statement from Dan Friedkin, who's going to be the chairman of Everton Football Club. Some big messaging from it. We'll go through that in a minute, but I'm delighted to say, despite it being the early hours of the morning in Florida, I have been joined by John Blain, who is the Vice Chairman of the Everton Shareholders Association. Good morning, John, and good news.
Good morning, Baz. Yeah, it's nearly 7 o'clock, so you got me a bit earlier than you did earlier in the week. But yeah, it is good news, of course. We've been waiting for it for quite a long time. I liked how you went through a long list of all those entities that have given approval when the one that's most important hasn't given approval, which is the shareholders of the football club. Because the vote hasn't taken place. But I think with Farhad Moshiri allegedly going to vote in favour of this, I don't think there's going to be any last-minute diversions on what has in the past been a rocky road. But no, it's a place called Start, Baz, so it's really good. Yeah.
What have you made of the appointments, John? Obviously, what's been sort of said today? I mean, something you've been consistent with is that Colin Chong will be kept on, certainly in the short term, because obviously that continuity, that's happened today. You've said that right from the word go, that regardless of who come in, that's what would happen. But obviously we've got Mark Watts, who I think his name, if I remember correctly, this is someone you did mention a few weeks ago on Business with Blain, just because he was in the entity. So he has come in as the executive chairman. And Dan Friedkin, which again, we weren't sure whether he would be such a prominent name put on the board, but he's going to be the chairman. So first and foremost, for me, just explain in layman's terms what the difference is going to be between the chairman and the executive chairman.
Dan Friedkin is the chair of the board of directors.
Okay.
But he doesn't have an executive role in the sense that he's not involved in the day-to-day running of the business per se. Yeah. And Mark Watts is the, just the chairman, right? But the key bit is he's got executive written in front of it, which means he's going to be involved day-to-day in the running of the business. Now, he's president at TFG, so of the holding company that sits on top of the automotive and all that sort of stuff. So that's a really, really senior appointment. And Anna Dunkel, who is joining the board as well, is also a very senior person, being vice president of treasury and risk and finance and stuff like that. So with Dan Friedkin himself being involved, that's pretty much almost like a top team from TFG. One might suspect it's a transition team, and maybe in a year or more's time, that they won't all still be there. But it does bring stability, of course, and brings huge authority from the Friedkin Group.
Anna Dunkel, you just mentioned there, she's the TFG's Chief Financial Officer. So, I mean, if you just basically, for everybody, break down each individual there, John, what you think they could bring to the football club, their expertise. It's without being disrespectful to anybody else who's been on Everton's board in the past, certainly let's say through the Moshiri era, these in terms of business experience and stuff, this is very much a step up, isn't it? If you're looking at it from a sort of just like a business perspective, not whether or not the people on the board in the past have been good or whatever, taking these three people who are joining Everton's board along with Colin, it seems to me anyway that they've got obviously a wealth of experience behind them. So I'm quite enthused by that, even if it is, like you say, maybe a transition board.
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at Dan Friedkin himself, if you wanted to be mega critical, you might say, well, he just inherited his dad's business. But it was him but it was him who supercharged it and made certainly the Toyota side of that business is, the largest independent distributor of Toyotas in the world, and the double figure billions of turnover. And that's all been under his leadership. Yeah. Mark Watts is a long-term heavyweight lawyer. So in and around corporate business and stuff like that. So again, another, as you might call it, heavyweight person, not physically, of course. You certainly can't say that about Anna, can you? And of course, Anna spent 17 years, was it? 17 years at JP Morgan before she was clearly headhunted out of there by the Friedkin Group to be their head of finance and risk management and all those sorts of things. So yeah, absolutely, mate. In broad business terms, they are a huge improvement on what we've had in the past. Huge. Clearly, they have very little or no experience of football. But you also know that I'm an advocate that it's about running businesses. If you can run a business, stop whispering, man. If you can run I
apologise.
Yeah. If you can run a business properly, then the vertical. If you like industry expertise, football and what have you, you can buy that in, right? Yeah. So, I think we should see decisive leadership from these people, I would say.
Some of the, obviously we've got messages from Dan Friedkin, as you would expect, Mark Watts, Farhad Moshiri as well. Yeah. Just outgoing Farhad Moshiri, I know a lot of people unhappy with what's gone on during Farhad's tenure. It's not gone the way he'd hoped. It certainly hasn't gone the way we hoped as well. Sure. And again, just to reiterate it, the biggest failing for me was not doing what the Friedkins have done today himself. So for me, that's a step up immediately. But the one thing that, regardless of everything else, and this might get a few people's backs up, I hope I don't, but it's only my view. I'm just wondering what your view is. The one thing we should take out of the Farhad Moshiri era, the legacy, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that he has sort of delivered what's going to be an incredible new home for us on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, John, and that, regardless of everything else, and I wouldn't defend any of the other stuff, I really wouldn't. So anyone who's watched this channel will know I wouldn't defend all the other stuff, particularly the playing side of it. But in terms of an owner coming in, doing something and getting off, at least we're going to leave the Farhad Moshiri era with an incredible new stadium, aren't we?
Oh, well, we certainly are, and rumours have it that the testing of the stadium has been done and it's ready to be handed over. So clearly, with Farhad Moshiri imminently leaving when the final ratification is done of the share movement, if you will, it's quite possible, I suppose, that he will no longer be involved with the club when it actually takes receipt of the stadium from the construction company, Lang O'Rourke, who've done a fabulous job, of course. And only time will tell, Baz. I think we've talked about it on the sofa before, not today, but in the round, that history will be kinder to him than the here and now, I think. Yeah. And I think you're right. If we can exploit that stadium, we can exploit the clearing of debt and lay down really strong foundations for, the return of Everton as what it used to be, a respected, well-run football club that performed well in all the competitions in which we compete. So let's see.
Fingers crossed. CFG vision for Everton Football Club. This is what has been put out today. The key priorities: strengthening the men's first team squad through thoughtful and strategic investment. I like that. Cultivating homegrown superstars through Everton's academy. Like that. Fostering a distinct on-pitch and commercial strategy for the women's team. That's good because they've suffered as well recently. Respecting the club's traditions and keeping Everton at the heart of the community. That's a big thing. Let's remember our roots within the community within this city. Maximising the potential of the new stadium through long-term commercial partnerships and events that benefit the city of Liverpool. I think that's a really interesting one as well, John. And then finally, enhancing Everton's reputation as a unique and historical name in world football. And let's hope that we get to write some of our own history moving forward, recent history, as opposed to saying, 30 years since we won a trophy, blah, blah, blah. What have you made from them sort of key priorities that they've put out there today?
I mean, I think it's a good start, to be honest. One has to walk the talk, right? But they've gone public. They've gone public immediately with what their intentions are. Clearly, if you take the first bill, it's about improving the first team squad. That's a short-term objective. The growth and the delivery of, I like the phrase, superstars coming out of the academy is a medium to long-term, activity. The women's is a short-term one. Respecting our traditions is an intent about literally a cultural intent, really. So you move from tactical type stuff into culture. And then, of course, you're straight into the commercial where we've been lacking in the past, of fully exploiting the stadium. And it's almost a segue from what we did a few moments ago, isn't it? But, it's not rocket science. It's the basics. And we just need to see that executed upon, to be honest. And, I wrote a Substack, and you may have read it. I don't know if you had a chance yet, Baz, but I talked in that Substack about almost immediately Farhad made probably his biggest mistake on the non-footballing side almost straight away, which is, as you say, wasn't to, let's be polite and say, enhance the existing board. It's a lot easier for the Friedkins to sweep away the old board because two of them were fundamentally the owner's people, himself and his selection. But they are right. And what we need to see now, of course, is if they are going to have a chief operating officer who actually runs the business day to day in the role, perhaps that of Baxendale did or previous to her and Elston, and much more difficult for Colin to try and do that. Then let's see who that is. Let's see if that's as good a selection as these initial names are.
I was just going to ask you that because quite clearly one position that is missing from this announcement is the CEO. If you read between the lines, if you listen to, and sometimes it's dangerous listening to whispers, but Everton have been trying to sort of recruit a CEO and have been testing the water. I mean, I'm a little bit, I'm not surprised, but I think maybe an easy win for Everton would have been Linus Shaluko, who was obviously the CEO at Roma. We know that didn't end great, but it didn't end great for a few reasons. It wasn't really earned. She's got a really good CV, and listen, the stuff with that is would she want to move over to England? Would she want to move the children over to England and all of that? So that might be why it's complicated. But in terms of a CEO coming in, is that really the next key factor for you? The next key appointment?
Oh, absolutely. And well, notwithstanding, we've got decisions to make about the sporting director and the first team coach of the men's team. But absolutely, And I think it remains to be seen, to be candid, about whether the role that is missing, if you will, is indeed going to be one of chief executive. We have already seen the confusion that chair of the board of directors and executive chair can bring. In my experience, I'm not a particular advocate of having an executive chair and having a chief exec. I tend to lean towards having an executive chair and a chief operating officer. And maybe subtle differences, but they are differences. And so it would be easier then to have a chief operating officer who had football experience, to be candid, right? Again, I'm not necessarily believe that to do that role, you need to have that vertical industry expertise, but an experienced chief operating officer type person who already has done the role in the past would be a good addition to the team, I think. And just to give clarity around this, that is a person who would sit at board level, but wouldn't have any direct influence on the strategic director of the business. It's actually a role that someone like Robert Elston would have been very good at in the past. His problem was he was probably a chief operating officer trying to be a chief exec. And Denise Baxendale was probably even further away than Robert was in experience terms, albeit she probably, despite what people might think, probably did a better job of it than Robert did. So you can see how it works. But yeah, absolutely. And I do believe that they intend to, appoint this role, in due course. And of course, they allude to that in the announcements. Further announcements will be made.
Will follow. Yeah. No, that it is. It's very interesting. Obviously, like I just mentioned here because quite clearly she's not working at the moment, and she did do a good job at Roma. And I do feel like, and we must remember in this that she actually resigned due to ultras turning up at her children's school, because she was very much the only visible. Or she was sort of like the highest visible person they could get to, because obviously the Friedkins, American-based, whatever, and therefore really experienced, worked in football, very intelligent. But, if you're talking about maybe like transitioning, I just wondered whether she would be up for the transition and then hand over in maybe, I don't know, 12 months, 18 months. I'm not sure, but clearly that isn't something that they're looking to do. So that's an interesting one. In terms of, obviously, there is, you just sort of alluded to it there, there is decisions to be made on Kevin Thelwell's future as a sporting director. I don't know whether he'll stay, whether he won't. That's an interesting one.
I think he probably will.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
I think he probably will. Yeah.
If you want to empower Kevin then and back him, no interfering, give him some funds, let him get on with it, then we'll see how good he can be. The manager decision, I don't know how long that'll take, whether they'll, see. I imagine a lot of this will be results based anyway. I think Everton needs to start winning games of football, or the manager will be judged. They changed the manager 3 times at Roma in this season alone, so if Everton don't start winning games, I think they'll have a look at that. But just right now, would you say this has been quite a positive start for them on day one? You have often said to me, it's very easy to talk it, you have to walk it, which is absolutely spot on. But in terms of being able to sort of take the ball and run with it on day one, i.e. from the announcement, it's very much what they do in the next sort of 90 days, as you've often said, which will determine the journey that we go on with them, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there'll be sub-plans within that. So you talk about 30, 60, 90 days. Yeah. And of course, we go 90 days from now. When's that? Sort of mid-late March. We'll have transfer windows behind us. We'll probably know whether we're in the mire or not, or whether we're safe as far as the Premier League is concerned. Yeah. So a lot can happen in those 90 days. If we step back from this and say we have replaced fundamentally, Farhad Mashiri with, say, Dan Friedkin, right? We've replaced John Spellman with Anna, right? Yeah. And then we've got a guy who does a bit of both and has got deep, huge experience. And we've got a bit of continuity from Colin. But there's no indication that Anna or Mark are going to suddenly move up sticks and move from the United States to live in Liverpool or thereabouts, is there? So in practical terms, on a day-to-day basis, then Colin, one rather hopes, has access to people with more experience, more commitment than he's had over the last 6 to 12 months. So getting the permanent chief executive and getting whether they're called chief exec or chief operating officer or whatever fancy job title floats their boat, the reality is the person who runs the business day to day on behalf of the Friedkin Group is a role that needs to be fulfilled. And one rather hopes that they do that well within the 90 days and hopefully sooner rather than later.
And then obviously we start looking at things like you're hoping that Roma, what they've learned at Roma, they can improve on at Everton, because obviously they've made mistakes. But someone put something to me yesterday, it was quite interesting. And again, this is what sort of recency bias can do at times, is that up until this season, lots of people were full of praise for the Friedkins and their sort of reign in Rome. so to speak, of what they've gone on. There was obviously more evidence not long ago that they'd reduced the debt from whatever it was when they took over 200 million or something at Roma. It was down to like 80 something million in the latest account. So bringing that down, we had somebody on from Roma Supporters Club, didn't we, recently, who said they put the money where the mouth is. They will invest. Don't you worry about that in players. I did like their strategy for buying players 23 and under. I really like that one. And I think that's something that Everton have to do. Doesn't mean you never ever buy a player over the age of 23, because they didn't. They bought Artem Dovbyk in the summer and he's 24. So, but having a look at trying to really concentrate on that market, which of course will bring, with players, if you can bring them in and develop them, they're the ones who create you money. And we know with PSR and everything else, we've got to be a little bit careful with that. And that's all we can hope, really, isn't it? That they have learned from some of the mistakes in Rome, and that that experience means that they make better decisions from sort of day one at Everton Football Club.
Yeah, I mean, I throw another soundbite at you. I don't think we've ever used this on BWB, but one thing that is important to remember when you're trying to run a business is directors direct, right? And managers manage. And that's not in job title terms, that's in hierarchical terms. So I think what Kevin Thelwell should get out of the new ownership, which he clearly never got from the last one, is a very clear direction on policy about how we're going to do certain things. And you've just brought one up that was at Roma. He may be told you do not buy players over this age without a very good reason, because we always want them to have sale value before the contract expires and all those sorts of things, right? I also don't advocate something you implied. I don't know if you meant it, which is you say to Kevin, there's a bag of money, Kev, go do your best with it. You can't do that in any business. Everything needs to be justified and approved. No, I know. I figured that, right? We've been on the sofa enough to know that's not what you meant. But the point is, he will get the challenge, I hope, about why do you want that amount of money? Why are you thinking of replacing those players? Why aren't you just giving this guy a new contract? Why do you want to keep this manager? Why do you want to get rid of this manager? And so on and so forth. But he should be perceived and accepted as the expert in the room. And it's only going to be in exceptional circumstances that they don't go with what he recommends. That's all he can ask for, right? And like brands in the past, as soon as he finds out that they're not actually listening to his advice, that's tantamount to moving him close to the door. So he should then lose up. He should leave, under his own timetable then, rather than waiting to be pushed. But hopefully that isn't the case. And Kevin's background is very much more about academy development type director of football rather than a big checkbook director of football. So I think he deserves the chance with good leadership above him to see if he can walk that talk himself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Make sure you like and subscribe while you're here. If you're loving the Friedkins Takeover, hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much. David Murphy on the Super Chat has said the stadium is that golden piece of sweet corn. In that not very good, I'm paraphrasing, part of Mashiri's tenure. We now need to exercise the ghost of Bill Kenwright. I think he means the way it was the club and move into sort of like the 21st century, if you like, and drag the football club into what we're playing at now, on this level where we are now. Drag the standards up that I think have been eroded and have been, because we have just been bobbing around, John, haven't we? It's been a weird time because you've often talked about the promised land's just there and you can see it, but we haven't been able to sort of get there because we've been in a holding space, a holding pattern. We've done a video here that'll be out soon, basically just charting the timeline. How far have Mashiri tentatively putting out that he wanted some investment to today that the investment's gone through. And when you go through, when you just watch the video and you see all the things that happened, you are a bit like, no wonder people are worn down with this. And I remember when we were going over to watch Everton in the States. We were going to Minnesota, and the Kaminskis, remember that one? The Kaminsky group.
Yes,
were hoping
indeed.
to announce themselves as the owners of Everton Football Club by the time we played Minnesota United, even though nothing had actually happened, and that was the story. That it was gonna be announced that night we played Minnesota that they'd bought the club. And you're going, that was 2.5 years ago nearly. And this has gone on, and Evertonians have had all of that going on. We've had Headlock Gate, we've had the board not being at a game, not attending matches anymore. We've had 3 other attempted takeovers. We've had relegation fights, points deductions, selling players. When you put it all in that melting pot, it is no wonder that most of us are a bit loopy with it all. We haven't just had a period where we can just support the football club. It's been insane. And within that, we have actually supported the football club. And, yourself and 3,000 other Blues are up and down the country at middle of the night leaving to get to games and selling out Goodison and everything else. Is that today should be a big weight off, I think, a lot of people's shoulders, because within that administration, remember that, we're in administration next week and all of that. It's been such a turbulent time, John, hasn't it, over the last 2.5 years for Everton Football Club, and longer, really, because of obviously the Ukraine conflict with Russia, COVID. It's been a real difficult time for Evertonians, I think, for about 4 years now.
It has been a difficult time, Baz, and I look forward to watching that video, by the way, because it sounds like a deep dive of the Substack article that I did. You can't put all that into less than 1,500 words, can you?
No, God, no.
But it has been a difficult time.
Yours will be deeper than my dive, John, by the way. Mine was just a hold your hand, whiz through what's gone on kind of dive. Yours will be the proper, tank on your back and you got, your goggle dive and stuff on. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, as I was back in the day when I was spending all my weekends in the Red Sea, it was often said divers do it deeper, Baz, right? So you've got to be there. But yeah, I mean, we need to be really cautious here because, we have a whole host of fans at all extremes of opinion, really, and at one end will be the guys who nothing can ever be done right, Yeah. I mean, I think I saw a tweet. I can't remember who it was from, to be honest, but there was a tweet in the last day or two when this was looking like it had become, definitely going to happen. Short while to relax, somebody tweeted, almost anticipating it would all go bad again very quickly, know? And the world has not been solved today, Baz, by some guy signing a piece of paper.
No.
2 or 3 people being parachuted into an organisation that needs to be made materially better is not going to happen overnight. By the same token, there's people at the other extreme who think this is going to take decades to fix, and it's not. It absolutely shouldn't be. So what we need to do is to find the sweet spot where we as fans can remain wholly committed to what the ownership and the executive leadership are trying to do. That includes the football manager, the director of football, and the like. Hold them to task if they're, in the short term, not succeeding. But hopefully, hence the conversations we have, they have good engagement. They engage with the right people in the right way at the right time. So we can understand what they're trying to do. And if we can do that, listen, if we can go through that crap, as you called out, for maybe 4 or 5 years, we can go through steady progress over the next couple of years, to get to a better place.
Absolutely.
But it needs to be laid out. We need to see evidence of progress. We need to see decisions not being allowed to fester as we've done in the past. In other words, decisive leadership with effective communication, and this football club will become a happy place for all of us again, right? Because I'm not convinced it's my happy place on some occasions, other times it is, and I just want it to be more often than not. That would work for me.
Absolutely, John. Before I let you just do a few comments before I let you go, John. Michael.
I'm in no rush. I'm up now.
Yeah. Okay. What a day now for the interviews with Deitch and Thelwell to see how to move us forward. It says, hopefully Thelwell has been blocked by the old owner and can now put in place a vision with or without Deitch. If he can't replace him for someone who can, then let them decide on the manager. Sean says, not a bad morning, lads. William says, what a day. Up the Friedkin Toffees. Everton Vikings says, for the first time in years, I'm genuinely so happy about Everton. The board impresses me, and to see they want more people impresses me too. It seems they've reduced the debt too, which will open up doors for us and ease nearly all the financial pressure. I mean, this is something you'd said they would do anyway, John, was obviously the refinancing and making the world a better place the minute they get in. Bill says, a positive day, finally the uncertainty gone. Mashiri and the temporary board depart, and hopefully a plan to rebuild our great club. Not going to get carried away as it takes time. We've had too many false dawns, but hopefully better days are ahead. Gary Ward says, have they fired Deitch yet? Not yet. Let's just do one. Let's just let them get in. Bainey says, in the words of Wolverine, let's effing go. Let's hope, wish, pray, or whatever you do at this time. It's the end of the turmoil, anger, heartbreak and incompetence and everything else that has been under Mashiri's tenure. David, afternoon, gents. Positive news today. Steve Guy goes very around this time of year with a joy to the world, which is quite nice at this time of year. Nathan, who of course was in here, John, not long ago, says,
hi, Nathan.
Yeah, says, hello, Baz and John. What great news. First time I've smiled properly since I got off the plane in Perth. Good to see you home safely, Nathan. John says, Mashiri was a decent bloke who listened to the wrong people and failed to act. His legacy is Bramley-Moore Dock, and I'm thankful for that. Blue Keeley says, John, are we at the shore now? The water can't be any more than knee deep, surely. I'll let you answer that because it's a direct one.
Yeah, I think it's washing around our ankles. Yeah,
okay.
But it's quite a deep beach, right? But and going back to what somebody else said, this isn't the end, mate. This is the start of the end. Yeah. So clearly, we need to get into that transition and then see how we come out the other side. We should also remember that the whole ethos of the business that Narrow owns our football club is to deliver. Their aim for all their businesses is to create timeless memories and inspire joy and purpose. That's almost NSNO, mate, really. Yeah, so, and of course, our new executive chair said they're going to try and live up to those ideals. So if you put a strive for excellence together with delivering timeless memories, that's all football fans want, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Memories you will keep forever,
Because fantastic. The thing what everyone's, and some people lose sight of this in trying to be right and arguing on social media and, cracks, dividing each other when we should all try and back each other, is that no matter which angle you're coming from, most Evertonians, I would suggest, all want the same thing. Do you know, whether you want Sean Dyche as the manager or you don't want Sean Dyche as the manager, or you want Kevin Thelwell out, or you want someone else in, or you want Thelwell to stay, or whoever, whatever. We all want the same thing, don't we? We all want to go to the match and watch Everton win. And then we want Everton to play in a way that we enjoy watching them. The trophies can come and go. They might never come. But we all want Everton to be better. Whichever way you're talking to another Evertonian, people should try to remember that. And everyone does have a slightly different view, don't they? They all have a slightly different opinion. And I think hopefully as we go into calmer waters, shall we say, hopefully we remember that and get a bit of that back of we all want the same thing. Now, you might say something that I don't agree with, but that's okay, because that's your opinion. Unless you're saying something that's absolutely outrageous and abusive or whatever, then that's how you're viewing it, but you still want the same end result as me. Know what I mean? When we go into that ground and sit down, we want them lads in blue, our blue, unless we're wearing an away kit. We want them to win, don't we? That's all we want. And we come out and we can debate whether someone should have passed or they should have shot, whatever. But, you know, that's all we want. And when we're all on that same page, or most of us are on that same page, the world is a far better place, and Everton are a far better Everton when people are behind each other. And that to me, I hope people can start to have a bit more respect for each other and keep the common goal in mind, which is to move us forward and to try and win games, because we all want the same thing. It's not like some Evertonians don't want Everton to win. They always want Everton to win. The church bells are ringing here, says Professor Poopy Pants. Fair play. Derek says, I get the feeling this won't be someone's train set, and these are very serious people. Hopefully. Damo says, melting pot is the best way to describe it, Baz. The last few years have been a mess. Just got to be optimistic about the future now. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. And Ian the Blue says, not getting carried away with the brilliant news. Hopefully no more scattergun decisions. And Steve P says, insert Mopai Shawshank Redemption tweet. Maybe, as we've escaped from it. So, listen, the general view, I'm sure it's the view of, well, James put the poll out before. It's had 830 votes. 98% are happy with it. 2% aren't, but I guess they're probably interlopers or Liverpool fans. They can't really be Evertonians, I don't think. But hey ho, everyone's got their own opinion. Corin, who's a YouTube member, says, glad Moshiri is gone, but I'm still unsure about the new owners. I'm hoping it all gets sorted out. If we start moving forward, then I'll feel happy, but I'll sit on the fence. Posh Matty says, just get the ball rolling. Dan says, up the Toffees. But that's it, isn't it? This is the thing, isn't it? Arnold says, Baz, Colin Chong and the interim board deserve big credit, and interim boarders are only ever short term, but they've steadied the ship for 18 months. What do you say to that, John? As obviously a vice chairman of the Shareholders Association, do the board that are going out deserve credit?
I think it's a difficult question because the board includes Farhad Moshiri, right? And he, in fundamental terms, is the architect of all the pain that we've gone through because of decisions he did or did not make all those years ago. I think Colin Chong has done a really admirable job in the circumstances, and he will have endured all the frustrations many people have over the years at the club of failing to get decisions about the people above him, so to speak. I think, as I said before, over time, Farhad Moshiri will get credit for having put that stadium on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey. John Spellman, I don't know who he is, I don't care who he is, and I'll never hear of him ever again. No. So he doesn't deserve any credit whatsoever in my mind. And steadying the ship was only because of the disruption of the disgraceful behaviour of the previous board, right? Because they brought into question the reputation of the football club and the round when they refused. And that's what they did themselves. They chose not to come to Goodison Park. Yeah, they would go to other football stadia, not to ours. So, yeah, I think it was difficult circumstances. I think the person who deserves greater is Colin Chong. And I hope he finds the right role to stick around at Everton for as long as he wants to. Which is always difficult when new owners come along because they don't want CXO types who were here necessarily before. But generally in the round, I think, the lady who talked about, and I said, my ankles are wet, There's we're walking up the beach, aren't we? We're walking up the beach and there's some sand on it. Let's draw a line in it, step over that line and don't look back in anger. Because I'm fed up to the back teeth of seeing people say, blah, 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 Ken Wright, blah, 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 Ken Wright, and so on. It's history. These failed people, the people who failed us, again, they thought they were doing their best at the time, right? But it wasn't good enough. But every time we reference the mistakes of the past, we worry ourselves about the future. Let's give the Friedkin Group what their significant investment deserves, which is a clean piece of paper to stand and fall on their own actions and not the actions of what they've inherited, But what they are inheriting because of Farhad Moshiri in many respects, because he's writing his debt off, and of course they are converting their own debt into equity, is a football club on the cusp of a great moment, which is moving to a new stadium, significantly more income, and therefore significantly more headroom to spend on better players. And I agree with you, Baz, when you said before, I think you even started off in your little speech saying most Evertonians want the same thing. And when we talk about there's no such thing as complexity, there's just lots of simple things joined together.
Yeah.
One of those simple things which we can all agree as we go to a football match and we want to see our team win.
Yeah, that's it.
How we win, what needs to be done so we can win. Maybe we all have different opinions. That's the journey management bit. And that's where, for the Friedkin group and our football club, that's where the engagement comes in, of explaining to people what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing. Not to finite detail like some might want, but enough for us to believe they know what they are doing. And then, of course, they'll stand and fall on, do we win football matches or not? That's it. Dead simple. Objective one, win football matches. That's it.
Absolutely correct. Alex says spot on, John. David Murphy says, John, those who fail to learn from history are destined to repeat it. And yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying don't learn. I'm not saying don't learn. Just talking anger. Yeah.
No, that's it, isn't it? That's it. Corin, who's a YouTube member, said, not unhappy, Baz, about the new owners, but because of the rubbish we've been through, I just pray it works and we win football matches. Listen, I was overjoyed when Farhad Moshiri bought the football club. I honestly thought that we're going to have a better future. There's money, and obviously PSR wasn't being used then. It was allegedly in, but you could do whatever you want. And I just thought that, because if you go and look at the team we had when he took over, it shouldn't have needed much money to put Everton into the top four. Really, it shouldn't, when you look at the players we had. And that couldn't have gone much worse from a playing perspective. So therefore, I think, if you take its position of try to be level-headed with it and just go, great, they're going to reduce the debt and everything. We're going to improve our financial position and just start from a low base. Then things that they do correctly will make us all feel better, and we'll have that demonstration. We know we can't go and throw 400 million in the transfer market. You can't do it no matter what. I've seen a Newcastle fan in the comments saying, made up for you, but the Premier League don't let you sort of spend money. We know this from our last owner, mate. We weren't allowed to spend money, and it's crazy. They've halted Newcastle spending, they've halted Villa, they've halted Forest, they halted us, which put us in this mess. So we're going to need patience. I think you touched on that before, John, and we've got to let it sort of play out a little bit, but they have to then evidence that they're making the correct decisions. But if we start from a bit of this is really good for us because they'll sort the club side out of it, still demand them, still get our standards back up, make demands. Jose Mourinho said that, didn't he, not long ago? The fans should be demanding. The fans should be calling for managers to do better, and if they can't, then they need replacing. That's the job of supporters. Everybody else who's in charge of the club, it's your job to put it where the supporters want it. But for fans, if we just start going, well, what can we expect on one end, then your standards drop. Everybody else is allowed to play at that low standard. So we should drive the standards up, but let's not get massively carried away and think we can go and put a bid in for Mbappe, for argument's sake. So, that kind of thing. Right. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you very much, everyone who's watching. Yeah, people are saying, let's be having you. Get the mega caps printed off right now. Yeah, fair enough. But let's spend what money we've got, and there will be some money in January. Won't be tons, but there'll be money to strengthen. Let's do it carefully and with a real, let's identify that we need pace. We need pace, and if there's a big world out there, go and get it. Then it's up to you. If Sean Dyche is still here, it's up to Kevin Thelwell to convince him to play him. We're buying him. We can get him. He's pacey. We want him to play. If he can't, then maybe Kevin Thelwell isn't the man. I don't know. Right, finally, John. Finally. When do you think, and this is a difficult question because how would you know, but when do you think there'll be some sort of announcement regarding, say, the naming rights of the stadium?
Before the end of the season.
Do you think it'll be that long? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's no rush, is there?
No. I'm just wondering. Okay, one more then. Let me add a side onto that then. Do you think there's a good chance it'll be Toyota? Or do you think
I think it must be
something else?
I think when you have what ultimately, if you mean Toyota as in not the Friedkin Group's Toyota businesses, Yeah. If it's really Toyota, then it's not an associated party transaction. Therefore, it's going to be someone's going to have to sell to Toyota, the company, the value of being the sponsor of Everton Stadium, aren't they? Yeah. And that is a space where we need to enhance our competencies as well, which is selling commercial, that sort of stuff. Just like we do on engagement and comms and things. It just looks like too easy a give to say, well, let's just write a check and it's sorted. Yeah. But, and this is the key. Anna, the finance director, who will sit on the board of Everton Football Club, as I said before, spent maybe 17, 18 years at JP Morgan, right? Who are the bankers ultimately of the Friedkin Group, and that's presumably why she went over the fence. She got an offer she couldn't refuse. These people are well connected. And if nothing else, having a bird in the hand, which is sort of how we could and should have used USM. We know we can get this from USM, but if we can get more from somebody else, we'll go to somebody else. I think it's a good litmus test for the Friedkin Group that we go into the new stadium with a very high-profile, reputable brand, as the naming rights holder for the stadium. And maybe in future days, front of shirt and those sorts of things. And clearly that would get Everton fans kind of excited because their expectation would be most, if not all, that money would end up on the football pitch, right? Which is why there's a long audition between when perhaps this time next year, isn't there, for someone like Kevin Thelwell to say, I am the man who's going to be here for many, many years. Or when all the excuses, and we do this at BWB, the role of the ownership is to remove the excuses for the people who work for them. And certainly Kevin had a very valid one that he couldn't get decisions in the latter days out of those above him, in a timely way. And prior to that, those above him were interfering. So he's not had a really clear run at it, has he? And somebody said earlier on your chats, give him the time to write a plan. Well, if he hasn't got the plan in his drawer already, then he probably isn't the right guy. I cannot think that he's just been living day to day, moment to moment for the last couple of years. And we've listened to the propaganda, and I mean small p, so not as a negative, about how all the processes and all those good things have been put in place to make us great again, if you will. It's just that there wasn't any great incentive from the owner to actually execute. My thoughts are the Friedkin Group think Kevin Thelwell's quite good, and therefore he'll stay. And if they think that, it's because they've spoken to him and they've heard his plan, right? So if they fund the plan, happy days. Let's see. But let's just make sure we get through this season. We make those decisions. I think if they have made a decision about Kevin, it'd be really good to tell us all straight away. But I suspect one of the reasons they may be a bit careful about doing that is because if we get some positive vibes about a decisive outcome of what's going to happen with Kevin Thelwell, it would immediately ask questions of the manager, wouldn't it? So, because why have you told us he's staying, but you've not told us he's staying? That sort of thing. So I think it's probable they've already decided to keep him, but they might not tell us just because they don't need the noise that would inevitably flow from it. So happy days, Baz. Today is a good day to be an Evertonian, as I tweeted a number of hours ago, and it's still a good day to be an Evertonian. Maybe Farhad Mashiri last game with any tenure at this football club would be against Chelsea. And of course, it was his first game was against Chelsea, sort of thing. And let's hope we get the same outcome this weekend.
Oh, God. Absolutely.
What a start that would be. What a start that would be. The stadium's going to be bouncing, man. It's going to be bouncing. So
I hope so.
With excitement. The 1878 flag display is going to be the best ever. Absolutely. Let's do this. Yeah, we can do this.
Last few comments. Benji says, Christmas has come early, up the freaking Toffees. Bainey says, let's hope we get an owner's kick this Sunday. James Graham, great news. Come on, you Blues. Blue Keely says, guys, thanks. Gotta say thanks to all you guys at Toffee TV for getting us through the last horrible few years. Genuinely, they've been a lot worse without these shows. Thank you very much. Danny says, thank God. I'm paraphrasing. Ian the Blue says, I was watching the game at Goodison on YouTube when we played Chelsea. When Martinez was in charge, we won 3-1. What a side that was. Would settle for that again on Sunday. And finally, Sean Turton says, debt-free. We're not debt-free, but we're in a more manageable place. Is that fair to say, John, from a debt perspective?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Clearly, Farhad Mashiri writing off and the letters to shareholders to say today confirm that that's going to happen will be converted into equity, which would then pass to the Friedkin Group. And the Friedkin Group themselves are going to invest capital for another. We end up with like 1.5 million shares. When Farhad took over, there was 35,000, you know. So, yes, there's cash going around and it's how they're using that. And clearly, absolutely clearly, some of the capital money is being put in by the Friedkin Group will be to settle or reshape some of those debts. So I would expect in some guys 777 to go away eventually, and that the RMF thing will have been reprofiled as much as anything else. So in a far better place, Baz, far better place.
Brilliant. Alex says, completely agree. You've been a shining light in a dark period for us as well. Thank you very much, Alex. I really appreciate it. And I'll get some more people to subscribe. We want that 100,000. I'm sure we'll get a big kick now anyway because of this, so that's good. Right, me and James will be live at 1 o'clock, so come back. This is obviously a big story. We're going to run with it. We're going to get a drink. And we're going to let John go because he's been a trooper. He's been up for hours. He's been tweeting and messaging me about 4 hours ago, which means he's had about 20 minutes sleep in Florida. So, John, enjoy the day. Try and get in that sun. I think it's 26 degrees in Orlando today. So get a little bit of that sun on you. You know, it's not 26 here. It's not cold, but it's just not very. It's a bit miserable here. But
it's only going to be 26 today. Yeah, okay. I'm cold.
Yeah. All right, John.
I'll get the cover off the pool and go in that.
Oh God, mind your neck in. Right, for everyone else, thanks for joining us. We'll be back. We'll be back at 1 o'clock. So go and get yourselves a drink if you want more. Takeover chat. Me and James will be going through some other stuff as well. Join us back then. Like, subscribe, do all that. See you in a bit.